All right.
Let's start. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict Show. Excited to be with you. Before we start, type in, please, where you are joining us from. I will greatly appreciate it because I always like to know what part of the world you are joining us from. Also,
Mhm.
thank you all for your those who bought us coffee already. There were some,
Yeah,
right?
there
Yeah.
were. There
Mm.
were. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
turn
My
that volume
voice is
up.
echoed elsewhere. So, anyway, so excited to be with you guys as always. We got an interesting show for you today. Is to talk about something that usually you don't hear much about, and this one has to do with the not the perception, but rather the reality of who really can be the honest broker when it comes down to solving those very complicated international issues. The
Mhm.
Arab-Israeli conflict is a very complicated one, even though those there are who will say, well, wait a minute, what is complicated about it? One country took over another country's land. Yes, it is. But there's more into what meet the eyes about this. Where the question that becomes is the idea of, is there an honest broker out there that could really broker the deal honestly, fairly, and justly? So, a lot of analysts from outside the US, at least to my knowledge, they are conversing behind closed doors that, well, if China succeeded in broker the deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, they could do the same regarding the Arab-Israeli conflict. Even though I have my reservations about it, and we will explain why. So this is what we're going to be tackling today. It's because where the conflict is right now, as we all know, there is a truce.
There is.
Yeah,
There is.
even though that truce is uh, it's not a laughing matter, but is the truce is because Israel is on the verge of losing.
So, yes,
Yeah,
continue
and
because
second thing
there's
was
more to this
because
truce.
even the G7 foreign ministers now
Mhm.
all come in with the statements
Yeah.
as to we would like to support the truce. Well, hold on a second. Where were you when
Right.
the
Right.
atrocity was? I mean, it's just hypocrisy
Right.
at the highest order. And to me, I don't do well with hypocrisy.
No,
You
you
know,
first of all, you
no,
absolutely do
no,
not
I
do well
don't.
with
I
hypocrisy.
don't. I'll
I don't.
tell you to your face.
Mhm. Well, and so I think there are a couple of very interesting pieces of this. The first is so China is stepping in, and Israel is now actually getting a lot of pressure from
Mhm.
China to extend this ceasefire into more or less a permanent humanitarian ceasefire,
Yeah.
which the world is watching what's happening in Gaza right now, and the world is taking sides. And I think, much to the surprise of the mainstream narrative, they're not able to control it. And so right now we're looking at Anthony Blinken stepping in and also saying, well, maybe we should extend this ceasefire and have it more or
Yeah.
less be a permanent ceasefire. Now, that, in my opinion, happened in the court of public opinion. But my big question, because China tried to broker a deal between Ukraine and Russia. And what
Yeah.
did the US say?
We objected to it.
The
We
US
rejected it actually.
absolutely
Yeah.
rejected it. And if you actually look at what was in that proposed truce,
Uh-huh.
it was very pragmatic.
Yeah, I read the clauses that China proposed. It's straightforward, and we didn't like it.
So, my big question here is,
Yeah.
would the US allow China to broker another more or less normalization treaty, ceasefire, whatever you'd like to call
Yeah.
it, in the Middle East?
I won't use the term allow because it won't apply to this setting. Basically, what it will be, because US will have no like the direct whether to allow or not allow.
Right.
What the US will have is the influence over Israel.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing for the setting of Ukraine. So allowing or
Exactly.
not will not be applicable in this case. The question will be is, does China wants to get involved, bugged into this because the complications of it, and knowing that China understands ahead of time the US is going
Mhm.
to undermine any
Of
efforts.
course. Of course.
And this is why, if you read the statements of Mr. Wang Yi, the foreign minister at the UN Security Council, because as you
Mhm.
may know, guys, today the China has sort of concluded its presidency of the national security, not national, of the UN Security Council, 15 members. There
Mhm.
are 15 members in the UN Security Council. Of course, you have the 5 permanent one. What China, it was presidency for China that is what's concluded today. And as a matter of fact, Ecuador is going to take over from China. They rotate among themselves. So what Mr. Wani said is that the idea of, and I think I have a quote from him. He said, and I quote, the fighting between Israel and Palestinian threatens to, and I put this in quote, to devour the whole region. And this is the reason why China is calling for a lasting ceasefire. But also China is thinking in terms of moving forward with the diplomacy, because we saw the result of the deal brokered between Iran and Saudi Arabia. That's a big, guys, if you only understand the complexities of the Middle East. For Saudi Arabia and Iran to come together, consider yourself lucky to be living in a historical time when you are witnessing with your own eyes the changes to the global geopolitical landscape. And this is one of them. So the idea of China having the, as I said, as it wraps up its rotating 1 month presidency, that's what they are calling for, the idea of ensuring that sort of the conflicts between Israel and Palestine will come to a head or a resolution permanently. There've been some talks that China had made it clear as to where it stands. Of course, this comes with the idea of the backing of the Palestinians because of their territory. On the others, there are already those in the West saying, no, China already coming in with the it's unbiased already towards the Palestinians. So you're going to hear both sides of the arguments. That's the norm of it. And this is why you have now countries like Spain threatening, I use the term threatening. Spain is threatening to go ahead with the recognition of an independent Palestinian state.
That's
that
wild.
is big. That is big because Spain is going against the wishes of the EU.
That's huge. So there's some things that came up, I guess, fairly recently about how let me see how to put this on YouTube so that we
don't get flagged out.
There have been some things that have come up about how some of the EU leaders were not particularly thrilled with how some of the deals were made with some of the large corporations during the last few years, particularly in buying a particular pharmaceutical and how that deal was actually made. So it's very interesting right now watching the EU sort of foible in a couple of really big ways because the deals that are made and the stances that are taken don't benefit every country equally. And so we're watching that start to happen. And Spain is a very interesting step outside of the boundaries that were put on it.
I will be, FYI, guys, I will be talking about this after this show on the other channel. That's what I'm going to be addressing today.
About Spain?
Yeah, it's because there is a historical link between the Middle East and Spain, if you only know back then.
Very interesting.
My ancestors came from part of Spain in Sevilla and Andalusia. So that's the reason.
Well, and guys, if you David goes live on geopolitical trends almost every day. So if you guys want to catch that, about 1-ish every day.
Around that time.
David goes live on geopolitical trends.
So here is the thing about how the Chinese sees this. And again, China will approach it from diplomacy, not military. There are those who said, well, will China get involved in military? That will be stupid things for China to do. And I don't see China doing the rationality of China getting involved military. It doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make sense.
So they won't. What China is going to push for is the diplomacy part. And here is why. Because what China wants, and I quote here, China wants regional stability, especially in the Gulf, where ironically, the US Navy protects Saudi oil exports to Beijing.
And
isn't that something?
That's it.
Yeah. It's also the idea of now the changes to all this. If China succeeds, and this is a big if, I don't see this taken off the ground. Because we will undermine it one way or another. I, as one who worked inside Washington, I understand how the government operates. Because if it is to We go just with the hypothesis that
Yeah.
it succeeds.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the nail in the
Oh,
coffin for the
absolutely.
US.
Absolutely.
Credibility is gone
Yeah.
because now you ask yourself, and I'm going to ask you a question. Who do you think is the honest broker right now on the global stage? I know it's a ridiculous question, right?
Yeah.
But if you only understand since when we have ever been an honest broker. You know, it pains me to say this about my country, but the truth is the truth. Can't sugarcoat it. So if China succeed in brokering that deal, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
it for the US because we are at the last leg of
Yeah.
US hegemony. As a matter of fact, the whole Western global order.
Yeah.
This conflict in Israel between Gaza and I'm sorry, Hamas and Israel exposes now the US and the Western order
Huge.
that is very,
Yeah.
very double standard.
Yeah.
We say one thing and do another.
Right.
And the simple question will be is why ICC is not conducting investigations?
Well, I mean, we know why,
Yeah.
right? We know why.
But still, it's worth asking the question.
Yeah,
If we
absolutely
are
it
to
is.
say,
Absolutely.
oh, ICC is an independent international institutions, why is there? You have countries like South Africa is calling for the investigation of the Prime Minister of Israel for committing war crimes.
Well, and what the ICC stepped in when Putin wanted to come to South Africa, which I think it's very interesting
I know.
that South Africa is the one that is calling for that.
Yeah.
Because they had to basically figure out what they were going to do. They were put in a very challenging situation because of the ICC. And so they were put out by the ICC. So now they're more or less trying to hold them accountable.
Yeah. And this is why Israel will be sort of if China ever steps in, which China made it clear as to where they stand on this, there will be no favoritism. There will be what's right.
Well, and you said this earlier, they're interested in stability in the region for oil purposes. So there are, and I'm sure that there are other interests as well. But if you look at the way that China has conducted itself, and like I said, I have pros and cons when it comes to China. Okay.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
I am.
But I won't push back against if there is something that is not right. You know that.
I know. But I think the reality here is there are two ways to create stability, right? One is to broker deals and to figure out deals that actually work for both parties, that both parties will actually agree to. And the other is to overthrow governments and put your own leader in that does exactly what you want, right? And so we see two different strategies on the global stage. The US, and this is over and over proven, this isn't, some crazy information.
Yeah.
The US puts their own people in and has for decades.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Well, interesting enough is that the guy who's been pushing for this had just died today.
Henry Kissinger. Yeah.
Finally.
Oh,
yeah. It's kind of, he's done. We don't, as we say, you don't talk ill of your dead people, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, we can ignore the dark history of Cambodia, what Henry Kissinger did. You can't. That's no different than what's her name, Madeleine Albright says about the 500,000. Yeah,
absolutely.
You kind of wish you're dead, a peaceful rest or whatever, but you can't ignore, and I kind of like because how could you?
No.
How could you? No. If you happen to be from that part of the world that went through that dark era, and now you are probably in your 80s, or your offspring, your kids now grown up, and you share the story with them, how could they forget that?
No.
But anyway, to go back to your point, yes, it was the idea of regime changes. We put whatever. China is going to approach it different. China has also another strategic objective to all this. And this one is tied to really this setting of the new multipolar system. Because multipolar, if you notice, I don't use the term bipolar system. The bipolarity existed between the Soviet Union and the United States, ended in 1991. Now there are those in Washington, they're saying, oh, is China now, it's going to be the Cold War with China. No. The reason why they're saying this so they can push the narrative again of the bipolarity, which means only two major. No, there are more than just two. Because the new multipolar system is not, and I've said this so many times, it's not based on ideology, but rather economic blocks. So China will be thinking in terms of Stability in the Middle East, in the Middle East, means more economic prosperity, not just for China,
Right.
but all parties involved, let alone access to energy, of course, because you can't do anything without having access
Well,
to
and
energy.
access to energy, actually, this is a very interesting point when we talk about even, the green initiative and the green agenda. It's,
Mm.
watching countries one by one start to abandon it, because energy stability is what drives the economy of any country. It also is, when you talk about World War II, why did the United States win? Because
It's because of energy. Yeah, the reason
because of
Japan
right.
lost is because they didn't have access to energy. That was the reason. If you guys go back to history and you remember the
Mhm.
meeting in Yalta, I believe. Is it Malta or Yalta? I always get them.
Malta,
Malta, I
I,
believe.
I
Yeah,
think.
that was when
Guys,
FDR.
let us know if we're
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. The meeting was to make that arrangements to
Right,
ensure that
right.
oil would not get to Japan, and that was the whole reason for it.
Well,
China is thinking in those terms also, but
yeah.
China also has its own calculations, strategic calculations, that is,
Mhm.
and rightly so. I can think of one right away, right off the bat. It has to do with the Malacca Strait. Because
Absolutely
if
go
there
into
is
this.
any
Yeah.
tensions in that region, we will ensure choking, because it's a choking point.
Yeah.
This is why the strategists inside China now are. I'm thinking of traveling to China next year,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna follow up on this particular aspect. And this one has to do with an arrangement. There's already been conversation between
Mhm.
Thailand and China to build a
Yeah.
bridge. Once
Yeah.
that bridge is built, it's gonna bypass Malacca. I won't go as far. I've read somewhere where there's some statements saying that Malacca is going to become useless. I don't
I
see
don't
that
know about
happening.
that,
Yeah,
but
it's no different than the Suez Canal,
yeah.
for
Oh,
example.
sorry.
It's still, it will always play a role into
Right,
this,
right.
or Bab el Mandeb in the southern part of Aden,
Yeah.
that goes of Yemen, that goes
Mhm.
into the Indian Ocean. Still, sizable amount of oil,
Yeah.
global commodities goes through that area. This is no different. So to China is the idea of why it has always walked some sort of a fine line when it comes
Yeah.
down to Middle East, is because the complexities of the
Oh,
region.
hugely,
You know,
hugely.
I'm still till today, despite my time spending there,
Mhm.
speak the language, understand the culture,
Yeah.
worked with the military, and still learning about the Middle East.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze, because Middle East goes way, way back,
Right.
and those complexities of the social fabric of the even the psychology of
Mhm.
each region in the Middle East, something the British never understood,
Yes.
and they went ahead and carve out the
Yeah.
Middle East based on.
Well, and quite frankly, how
Hmm,
dare they? And I think colonialism, in my opinion, is
yeah,
one of the and not that there wasn't conflicts. Okay, this part of the world has had an enormous amount of conflict
of
for
course,
a really long time. So this
yeah.
is not, this is not brand new. Okay, but to me, colonialism made everything worse. And if you look at the
The
countries
country, yeah,
that were colonized,
yeah.
it destabilized everything about them.
I made the same argument in 2002, 2003, before the
Mhm.
invasion of Iraq. And my argument
Yeah.
was from this particular point. I recall arguing that if you go in, you're not only going to destabilize Iraq, you're going to
Yeah.
destabilize the Middle East. And you're going to now sort of turn things upside down to the point that you won't be able to control it.
Well,
And
and what
that's
are we seeing now?
exactly what happened.
Yeah.
A little long, I did mention, and I don't hide that or shy away from it. I did mention that now you are given an open door to
Mhm.
Iran, because that was exactly what we did. We
Yeah.
took care of two key elements that Iran didn't want to get involved, but wished for it to be done.
Yeah.
The two elements were one in Afghanistan, one in Iraq. We did that.
Yeah.
We paid for it. We sacrificed our people. But at the end, because I was in Iraq, I
Yeah.
remember the whole intelligence services in Iraq were dominated by Iran.
Yeah.
I was aware of the transfer of money, hard
Mhm.
currency, from the central banks in Baghdad to Iran.
Yeah.
So, and that was the consequences of what I argued against. I said, do not do it, because,
Mhm.
and the reason why also, because the individuals who were making decisions at that time in Washington, and still till today, do not have an understanding of history.
Yeah.
They read a book or two and call themselves experts,
Even
and
if
now
that.
they didn't understand the implications.
Yeah.
Basically, what I said was, you are doing nothing but putting a band-aid.
Yeah.
How much a band-aid can hold?
Not
Not
much.
too long.
And it doesn't fix anything.
And that's exactly, yeah, the problem. That now it's too late.
Right.
It's too late to even go back. This is where China comes in. That's why their statements are aimed. If you weigh the words of what the Chinese foreign minister is saying, and those are very measured words,
Of course.
all of them pursue the path of diplomacy.
Yeah.
This is why those who say, well, China can get involved militarily, it doesn't make any sense. If you hear what the foreign minister, Mr. Wang Yi, said, that this conflict will devour the Middle East. That word was measured. It's because, and here is the reason why. Oh, let me ask you guys, why do you think Mr. Wang Yi used the term devour the Middle East? If you will be kind and just put the answer into just whatever you think. I'm not putting you on the spot here. I just like having you part of the conversation, because that's what we believe in our channel here. It's a community. It's a conversation. So, but to me, as an analyst, it's measured.
Absolutely.
For a reason. So I'm gonna wait till I see what the our viewers put in. Then we'll go back. There is another point that I need to highlight to you guys. What just happened yesterday in Syria?
Oh, interesting. Yes.
Syria shut down some missiles from Israel. Yeah. Who do we have to thank that for? What do you think? What do you think, Elizabeth?
Well, hold on. Let's see what they think in the comments. But there's a lag, David. So keep going, and let's see if I can find it.
So, and this is why, if you guys recall, when our incompetent president, Mr. Biden, met with President Xi in San Francisco, beside that context of which was out of a cuff comment, just doesn't make any sense, calling Xi a dictator. It's so stupid. I don't know where the advisors were.
Well, Anthony Blinken was in the crowd,
in the room for that.
Like,
no. Beside that one is the idea of what Biden asked Xi for. Do you know what he asked him for? He asked him to get involved in influencing Iran and Syria. And do you think President Xi is going to say, sure, because you asked and because you talk nicely, I will do that for you. That's where, you all know, I'm being facetious here. You all know that's where our credibility has been shattered beyond. It's gone.
Well, and even it's very interesting, even, having Xi here.
Yeah.
And then also Biden calling him a dictator, which was, oh my God, watching Anthony Blinken's reaction was maybe one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. If you guys want to see that, we have it on our Rumble from yesterday. We played Anthony Blinken's reaction to that.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Very, very, very embarrassing.
It was very embarrassing.
But also highlights to you, we have no more substance when it comes down to our foreign policy.
Yeah.
It's nothing, as I always say, a bravado and rhetoric. No more, no less. That is the reality of it. And this is why China is saying what it's saying as far as ensuring that the path of diplomacy towards the conflicts in the Middle East, because the complexities, China is aware of this. And this is why, in my opinion, succeeded in brokering that deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, because they did not get involved into this domestic, tribal, societal settings and all. They didn't care for that. What they cared about, the big picture. And the big picture is win-win.
Right. And I will say also that one of, I think, the biggest hurdles that the Israel-Palestine Hamas conflict has is Netanyahu himself. Because even as we're looking at the end of this ceasefire, right? So they're trying to extend it another day, and it's been extended. Even Anthony Blinken is calling for the extending, more or less indefinite extending of this. But Netanyahu himself keeps saying, absolutely not, absolutely
Yeah.
not. We're not going to ceasefire. We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. And that is, in my opinion, not responsible for a leader. For a leader to say that, to me, is completely irresponsible, because I understand taking care of your people. You must take care of them. But looking at the much bigger picture as to what is actually going to provide safety and security for your people, is it
Yeah.
continuing this? Especially when the larger companies oh my gosh,
A lot of
countries
countries.
are, yeah, I think you know who I think runs things.
Yeah.
But the larger countries are really starting to call for this right now. And so let's see. One of the things that Wang Yi said through, through an interpreter, there's no safe area under gunfire, and letting the fighting drag on would only bring more death and damage. There's no firewall in Gaza either, and resuming fighting would only most likely turn into calamity, exactly as you said, that
Yeah.
devours the whole region.
That is true. The answer, you guys got it right. I saw.
Oh, where is it? Where is it?
Hold on. I see Ursula here. S-400 missile systems. You're absolutely
Mhm.
correct. Who else here is Tokyo Homes, Russia? You're absolutely correct. Thomas Smith, Kara Shine. Oh yeah, you guys get it right. It was Russia because what Russia ended up doing is around the airport areas, put all their anti-missile systems there. So,
Mhm.
why am I bringing this up? Within the context of what Mr. Wang Yi said, the conflict, Israel and Hamas, could devour the Middle East,
Yeah.
because you have other players gonna get involved. Those players are not your
Yeah.
average Joe,
Yeah.
average Jane per se, as far as countries. Like, for example, it's not Cyprus, is not
Right.
you know what I mean. Those countries, like the likes of China, the likes of
Yeah.
Russia, the likes of Turkey,
Mhm.
even for Lebanon, it won't be the government, because the government is so weak.
Yeah.
It will be the group Hezbollah, and Hezbollah
Yeah.
is far stronger than the central government. That's why the entity in
Mhm.
Hezbollah is not under the control of the government.
Yeah.
Because they're very, very strong. Very. They
Right.
were the one who drove out the Israelis back after 15 years
Yeah.
of occupation during the 2000s. I was aware of that because I started traveling at that time, 2002, to overseas, to the Middle East and so forth. And this is why those major powers, and especially I'm talking Russia, China, Iran. The reason I'm thinking what I was thinking right there as
Yeah.
I speak is because what comes to the back of my mind was, what will North Korea do?
Yes, that's
What
actually
I'm
a very good
thinking.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because it's no different than what North Korea said about supporting Burkina Faso.
Mhm.
You remember the
Yeah,
conversation that they
yeah.
said we'll be happy to provide whatever.
And they
Yeah,
did.
that's the
So
thing.
yeah,
And even the
absolutely.
Russians, like what Ray McGovern, you remember? I don't know if you guys watched the video I had with the interview with
Mhm.
Mr. McGovern, and he was right.
Yeah.
That information is confirmed. Of course, that's Ray, an analyst that speaks the truth.
Yeah.
You don't get to work 27 years being an analyst inside Washington if
Yeah.
it's not for your credibility.
No, he's very smart
Oh,
and
I admire
very
the
well
guy.
spoken.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've known about him
Yeah.
way back when I was in Washington. You tend to, as an
Mhm.
analyst to analyst, you tend to look for the ones
Right.
before you, because that's how you learn. Those people have experience.
Yeah.
It's worth learning from. You don't assume you become an analyst over the whim of your.
Oh,
No. And this is what bugs me the most about YouTube.
Yeah. Armchair analysts.
Yeah, that I have a hard
Yeah.
time with. Nothing against anybody.
Mhm.
They are entitled to do whatever. But when you start just, you move from.
Right.
You got the
No,
idea.
I get it. I get it. And that is sort of a common thing that we have, is, people basically giving their opinions about things who really don't have
Yeah.
a background to do that.
And that's the thing. You give an opinion, it's okay,
Right.
as long as you don't have the credentials for it.
Right.
That's to me.
Well, and that's honestly, guys, I don't know if you ever listen to celebrities' opinions on things, but I feel the same way about celebrities. Celebrities will come out and say, and I remember, during the Ukraine conflict, I thought it was the weirdest thing to have celebrities go to
Going,
Kyiv.
like
And
champagne.
and two, I
Sean
mean,
Penn,
they're in the middle. Yeah, Sean Penn.
yeah, it's
He
crazy.
came and he brought
Yeah.
his Oscar, I guess. He has no qualifications whatsoever to tell you what to think.
Yeah.
But psychologically, people see those people and trust their opinions when they have
Zero
no
experience.
experience and no reason to think that. But you do.
Well, I spent the years and years in the Middle East, and
Well, is your
and
PhD and
my academic background. You
six
do,
books later
and 143 articles.
Mhm.
And I wrote for different ones around the world. So, anyway, to go back to the point of the how China is going to navigate this, and that's why I said the intervention of other players will be, and this is why I think Mr. Wang Yi used that term, devour the Middle East. That is a very measured word. And Wang Yi is someone who's been around long enough.
Right.
I've been following him for years. He's very well measured. He knows what he's talking about. He acquired that. I compare him and Sergei Lavrov.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They are top.
Absolutely.
They are top when it comes down to diplomacy and so forth.
Yeah.
People who've been around. You know,
Right.
it didn't took over the position last year. That
Right.
guy's been doing it for decades, so they understand the dynamics of international relations. And the reason why he mentioned that one also is because that is also another message for the Western world that era of dominance is coming to an end. That's why I said, could this Israeli-Hamas conflict exposed the soon to be the collapse of the Western order as you and I know it? I think so. Because why? Because we see in the double standard.
Well, and we're watching it immediately after Ukraine and Russia. And the problem with Ukraine and Russia is that, we started watching Ukrainian generals buying their children multi-million-dollar mansions. We started watching them drive around in fancy cars. We watched Zelensky's wife go on shopping sprees in Paris. And we watched the fact that now that it's not popular anymore, the call for peace between the two. We watched the narrative initially be about democracy and making sure that we're fighting for democracy. And now it's turned to Russia just didn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO.
Yeah, because their security is at risk.
Right.
And would we want Russia or China establish a naval base in the Gulf of Mexico?
No, and we would absolutely not. We would not allow that.
Same thing.
And so now we're watching more or less back-to-back conflicts where a lot of real information is coming out about them.
Yeah.
Because yes, the narrative is one thing, and it is absolutely true that the atrocities committed against the Israelis are absolutely not okay. That's not
wait.
There's atrocities on the other end.
I'm going to push against you. Wait a minute. You use the term atrocities. I agree. Yeah, the term it is.
Yeah.
But did we ask why?
No.
So it's a reaction. It's a reaction to that.
Right.
So they are within their right?
Well, so it is a very complicated situation. So yes, I do agree that the facts that are coming out to a global stage about the way that the Palestinians had been living and the conditions under which they had been living.
For how long?
For a long time.
75.
Right.
75 years.
And I think it's the most densely populated area.
Gaza Strip. That is correct.
And we're also watching the death toll be very unequal.
It's always been.
It's very unequal.
Yeah.
We're watching, obviously October 7th, we're watching that, that death toll was horrendous and the hostages and all that. But we're watching the death toll climb in Gaza also. So we're watching this very lopsided death toll happen. And in primarily children and women and civilians. I mean, they didn't take out, 10,000 Hamas people, right? This is a very lopsided situation. So we're in an era where we have cameras that are watching, right? We have social media, we have more information than some of the other conflicts that we've been in. And so it's much harder for the narrative to be controlled in those situations. And so we're watching the United States, and you can see this in the polling of younger people. So we addressed this yesterday on Rumble, that the younger people, it's a 70% disapproval rate. I think it was MSN. I think it was MSN that had this video. Do you remember? I don't remember exactly where it was, but it's on our Rumble. I showed it on our Rumble, that there's a 70% disapproval rate between the ages of 18 and 34. So the younger generations who are on social media, who are watching these things unfold, are not approving of how this is being handled. And so I think that that's a very different situation than we've ever been in terms of conflicts, don't you think?
Yeah, but the idea of atrocities, because if we are to use the term, we're going to have to understand the reasons why.
Of course.
I mean,
think
you look
that's
at,
critically
so
important.
far
Critically
it's been
important.
disclosed that over 14,000
Yeah.
14,000 Gazans,
Right.
citizens in Gaza, have been killed.
And that's a very lopsided
yeah,
number.
when you look
It
at
is.
when you look at the and again, we don't defend any party.
absolutely
No,
Absolutely not.
We're being objective.
Or condone.
I know
either.
sometimes
Absolutely
I
not.
see those comments like, no. I had somebody made a comment about, well, this is nothing but propaganda. That's nonsense. It's because
Absolutely
you're not
not.
willing to hear the truth.
Yeah.
Straightforward. He or she is entitled to his or her opinion. That's something we will always welcome.
Yeah.
But if the comments don't make any sense, we're gonna push back against that one.
Yeah.
So
and absolutely.
for the Gazans, 14,000 have died. But at the same time, we're gonna ask the question, and this is one argument, by the way, that China's making.
Yeah.
It's making that because if you are to look at, and Ray McGovern was right on this, under international law, what is self-defense are you talking about if you are occupying a land? It's international law. It's right there in the books.
Right.
Where the problem in the West is, we tend to close our eyes on certain aspects. We become cherry picking. You look at this idea of the ICC, the International Criminal Court. Why is not launching an investigation right now about the atrocities that Benjamin Netanyahu committed? And once again, guys, when we mention Israel, we are not referring to the people.
Absolutely not.
I want you guys to make that distinction. We make it clear.
Yeah.
Jewish people, Zionism, two separate things.
Well, and that's something actually that's not really being discussed either.
No,
it's all sort of being lumped into
up.
one.
Yeah.
But exactly to your point, David, it's that people are not willing to go and look at the in-depth information and the complexities of the situation. It is easier to just lump everything together and look at the headline and say, oh, well, this is what this is. It's
that's why we do what we do here in this channel. It's to provide those facts for you guys, because you reach your own conclusion.
Absolutely.
We provide the arguments. I want to say thank you to Tokyo. That's Tokyo home from Canada.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it.
And then we have two more. We have Osiris. Hey,
Osiris. Yeah. Thank you very much, Osiris.
And then we have Hong Luong.
Oh, Hong Luong. He's always there. He's on the other channel too. Those are avid supporters, and we can't thank you enough, guys. And we appreciate those who bought us coffee for this channel here. Thank you so much. And I don't know, do we have the link for it?
Yeah, I do. So it's buymeacoffee.com/geopolitics and conflict.
That's one way, guys, you support this channel, because, and I'll say it, I don't shy away from it. The information you get here, it's not something, you can find it somewhere else, assuming the people who are talking about it do have credentials for it.
Yeah.
Straightforward. So.
Well, I mean, this is decades and decades of experience in this particular realm.
Yeah. So we truly, truly appreciate your support, guys.
Yeah.
So the idea of thinking in terms, now the question we need to ask, and this is a big question, is what's next for this conflict? Now, will this ceasefire hold, or will Israel just restockpile and go to the phase 2? Well, and if it is phase 2, what does it mean? Because remember, The other party, meaning Hamas in this case,
Mhm.
we have only seen one side. We didn't see the full picture.
Sure.
They do have some
Sure.
wild cards. They're not playing them right now.
Yeah.
That's no different than, for example, what we say about Hezbollah.
Mhm.
With over 150,000 missiles,
Yeah.
so far they are keeping a low profile. They
Yeah.
are attacking locations in the southern border in
Mhm.
Lebanon, which we don't hear much about.
Nope.
And they are with the direct hit. I've checked and confirmed the information.
Mhm.
But of course, because some have asked, well, is Wagner helping Hezbollah?
We haven't heard much about Wagner recently, but
You
they
won't.
didn't disappear.
You won't,
They
because
didn't go away.
and even if they do, you won't ever
Right.
get a confirmation of that, because that's something, it does not make any sense to disclose that information.
Oh yeah, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. They're
No,
not going to make that
no.
public.
I won't be surprised, knowing what I know, but I also will not be surprised that that information will never come forward.
Mhm.
What you can understand and read between the lines is the statements in Russia, in Moscow, that was recently, is
Mhm.
that Russia might be willing to arm an entity in the Middle East with some advanced systems.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what I
Yeah.
said. If I am to guess, who do you guys think Russia was referring to? If you can put an answer there.
Yeah, put it in the comments, and I'll take a look and see
Yeah.
if I can see.
Because
the
I want
answer.
to just trigger your thinking, because I want you to be part of the conversation here. And I can see the rationality for
Mhm.
why Russia will not just say this,
Yeah.
but will do it. That's, to me, right there. It
Russia
explains.
doesn't bluff.
Well, it explains what just took place yesterday in Syria.
Yeah.
The shutdown of the. Now Israel will have to think twice, because they
Mhm.
were attacking the airport
Yeah.
with immunity.
Yeah.
So it's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And that, to me, why I said what I said at the beginning, as far as the Western order
Mhm.
is collapsing slowly.
Well, so I actually have a theory on what's next, and I would like your opinion
Yeah.
also on this theory, because my specialty is how humans work, right?
Mhm.
And it's very interesting. The ceasefire is interesting. Remember when it first started, I said, I bet they're going to extend it and extend it and extend it.
Yeah.
My theory is this. My theory is that this ceasefire allows Israel, Netanyahu specifically, because I like I said, I would also like to separate the Israeli people from the
Yeah.
government, just like Americans or anybody else from the government. It allows him to save face in a
Mhm.
sense,
Mhm.
because this is a deeply unpopular conflict. It's unpopular here in the United States, and it's unpopular globally. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and this is just my theory, that this is something that is going to permanently extend, or not permanently, right? Because it's a very complex situation,
Mhm.
but is going to extend for a very long time. And some different type of strategy is going to be utilized. Like I said, that's just my theory. And that is because it allows them to save face in a sense, because they're just getting hostages. And it allows the ceasefire to continue because, like you said, the conflict isn't going the way that they thought it would go.
Yeah, but it won't extend forever.
I don't think forever,
Yeah.
but I do think
Well,
for
there
a
is a
while.
reason
I do
why.
think-
There is a
I do
reason
think
for
a
that.
while.
You can't extend a truce like that without negotiations.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
agree.
but if
I
it is
agree.
negotiations, on whose terms it's going to be?
Right. But
So-
look at Blinken.
Yeah.
Look at what he's starting to say. So remember at the very beginning
Yeah.
of this conflict, do you remember how long it was a chant for no ceasefire?
Well, we opposed the UN resolution,
Hugely.
I think 1224 or something like that. We objected it.
Mhm.
So that explains why.
And now what are we starting to hear out of the White House? Now, and it's interesting as you've watched the narrative change.
Well, because also we come into presidential elections, and the Democrats will have
Exactly.
to be thanked to, which to us, our system is corrupted.
Mhm.
I've always said this so many times. I want to say thank you to
Peng you?
Oh, Peng Yu.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for your super sticker, and hi to you as well. Let me see the answer here.
Yes.
Oh, Hambola, you got it right. You got it right.
Mhm.
It was Iran without disclosing. Remember, Iran already got the S-300 missile systems from Russia. That's already done there. There is now the conversation or the talks regarding the S-400. But this is not about that. What Russia was talking about is providing the air support, not air support, but air power. That's what they're referring to. It's not a, that's to me, it's a game changer because we all know it's not a secret. Hezbollah is getting most of the advanced missiles from Iran.
Right, that's not a secret.
The question have always been, how did this weapon get there? Is it through the Mediterranean or is it through tunnels? Now, if it is the case, the next question you need to ask, is there a tunnel between Gaza and Lebanon?
That's a great question. There's a lot going on.
I don't have an
underground.
answer to that.
Yeah, I don't have an answer
I don't know.
either.
But when it comes down to the web of tunnels, Israel couldn't control that. They are far beyond what you can even imagine. And sometimes the flow of weapons goes through there. And this is why I think Israel was so scared. Yes, I use the term scared to go into Gaza, let alone Lebanon. That's why they never went in. It's because they know this time around things have changed. What Hamas did and show and exposed the failure of the Israeli, first of all, intelligence.
I was going to say
then the military.
I thought Israeli intelligence was the best in the world up until this situation, and I don't know what internally is going on in that conversation. But the Mossad has been touted as the absolute best intelligence agency.
It is considered the best. It is considered.
If it's the best, how did they miss this? And that's a question I've had from the very beginning. Is how, and I'm not saying I don't know. I don't know what happened. I wasn't in those rooms. I don't know. I'm not saying that I know. It's a valid question though. How did they miss it? Because at the very beginning, they said, oh, well, there was chatter. We just didn't believe it.
Well,
I have more faith in the Mossad than that. No? Is that misplaced?
No, they were informed. They were informed about it.
And how could they not have been?
How? And who informed them about it? That's the key.
The best intelligence agency on the planet.
And they didn't know, but they were informed. And who informed them were the Egyptian intelligence service. Now, I used to remember, what was his name? I forgot his name. He passed away. Used to be the head of the Egyptian intelligence service. My military unit used to go a lot to Egypt for rotations because I was in 312 MI unit here in the US. Not Musa. Amr Musa. Anyway, they informed them. So the question becomes is why they didn't react to that? They wanted to.
I don't know.
It's to me, it's always those things don't happen in a vacuum because the idea of all of a sudden you switch from Ukraine into Middle East. Middle East is a complicated, is a volatile state. Any conflict will take over the headlines. That's a given. It's just the question of why, if they knew about it, why they didn't react to it beforehand. The other thing is, as I said, what is the real objective of why they let this go? All of a sudden, now they are trying to change the narrative, especially for us here in the US. You know how they're changing the narrative here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's changed almost completely.
Well, this is just recently. No, this is recently.
Which part?
That the CIA now is involved with the UFOs.
Oh,
yeah. Makes you just wonder. I know.
There's so you know the video that's been going around. Okay, so my now husband, which is amazing to say, but my now husband and I have sort of gone over that footage and looked at some of the kind of debunking of, you know, that one that's the top that's turning around,
the TikTok.
Do you notice that the camera bumps every single time that thing turns? It bumps. Guys, go watch that.
Yeah, she's a producer. By training.
Yes.
So this is not about just snapping a picture.
Well,
we're talking about production. So she understands the images, how they are.
I mean, here's the thing. Movie magic is real.
Yeah.
It's absolutely real. And so, you know, you think, oh, there's no way they could, you know, just go look for a second.
Yeah.
I'm not saying UFOs are not real because I personally believe they're absolutely real. For us to think we are alone in the universe, to me, is beyond arrogance.
Yeah. Okay? But I do have another counter question to that.
Okay, go
and
ahead.
The counter question is, how come the aliens will only end up being destroyed here in US but not, let's say, in Russia? Or how come we always hear UFO crashed in the US
Here's the
but
thing.
not in another country?
They're crashing in other countries too.
Uh-huh.
That is true. They are crashing in other countries also. And so we just don't hear about it here. And it's more interesting if you listen to some of the official. There's a guy in Canada, and I know it's a little bit off topic, but I think
Yeah.
it's actually very important
Mhm.
in terms of when you're hearing a narrative come out. Always look at it for yourself.
Self first. Yeah.
Trust yourself. Get
Yeah.
information from everywhere. Get all sides of an argument, and then you decide for
Yeah.
yourself what you
Yeah.
believe.
But I found the timing of it, that all of a sudden,
Very
CIA,
interesting.
that's to me,
Yep.
it's always, as
Yeah.
one who works inside Washington, I was aware of that. If you want to
Yeah.
move society as far as
Right.
thinking,
Distract them
yeah,
somewhere else.
because we
Distract
are
them somewhere
realizing
else. Yeah.
that we are becoming, now the whole world knows about our involvements in the crimes committed against defenseless civilians. I
All
understand
over the world,
argument.
by the
Yeah,
way.
the whole world knows it. So, and we are realizing the administration now wants to sort of push the narrative, given that the presidential elections coming up, whatever.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't buy the argument of the agency, even though there is a division inside the agency called the global assets.
Mhm.
So without going any further into
Well, it's interesting, if there's anything that you can learn from watching the narrative, the mainstream narrative over the last few years, is look at what I don't know if I can say this or not on YouTube, but there was a joke going around that Putin cured COVID. I hope I can say that. YouTube gods, I hope I could say that. But there's that joke going around because all of a sudden you didn't hear about it anymore. And now all you heard about was the conflict in Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. And then, now that what the attention has now focused on Israel Hamas, now what do you hear about Ukraine anymore? Right? You don't hear much about it anymore, despite the fact that I think it's Chuck Schumer is trying to get more money for Ukraine. You don't hear about it anymore, do you?
Yeah. All right, we want to say thank you here to Selma Goltekin. Thank you so much for, I don't know if this is like, yeah, I couldn't tell.
No, I think you said it right.
No. I'm looking at the currency. I'm interested in the country. Thank you so much for your super sticker.
Oh,
Truly
yeah. Guys, if
appreciate
you
it.
can put in where you're from, we love reading
really
where you guys are
appreciate
from.
And you are absolutely correct. AK, Bibi needs this state of conflict to continue to stay out of jail. You're absolutely correct.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Because if once he's done with the government, because they already conducted the investigations and so forth. So, all right, let's see. We'll take a question or two if there are.
Absolutely. Guys, put the word question in front of it so I can see it.
And please remember, guys, remember to support the channel. We truly, truly appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And also hit the like button right now as you're watching this. We greatly appreciate it. We don't understand why sometimes we'll have, whatever amount of views, but it doesn't correspond with the likes. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if something's going on. I don't know.
The YouTube algorithm, guys, the more you share this with other people
please.
As much as you can, because the more you share it with other people, the more YouTube sees us as, people are interested in this. And so it promotes us further. Yeah. The YouTube algorithm is the end all be all for all of us as creators.
Yeah. And you all know the content we provide you guys here is not something, media is not going to talk about this. They won't provide an objective analysis. No. So we do spend time to gather this information for you. And as a matter of fact, in my case, and I speak for myself, I gave up teaching at the university.
Yeah.
To do it because I believe in this. That's how much so we appreciate you supporting the channel. If this is your first time here, please subscribe. We'll greatly appreciate that.
Andy says, hit the like button. It's free. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is free.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, so let's see. So someone is, let's see. I am from Guyana. Andre. Kim is from Cape Town, South Africa. Let's see if I can find Jesus Christ is speaking is from Trinidad.
Good.
Let's see. Ursula is from Sweden. John is from London. Carlos is from New York. Selma's from Norway. All right, let's see if I can find. Thank you guys for
Thank you
sharing
for
that.
being here, guys.
Let's see if I can find a question. All right, let's see. I found one. Okay, I think this is a very good question. It's from 2099. Question: what do you guys think of the recent cancellation of Iran's Raisi visit to Turkey? Do you think there's a crack in this supposed Middle Eastern alliance of Islamic and Arab states?
Well, it's because simply Iran versus Turkey, two of them sees the issue of now Israel very differently.
Mhm.
Both of them been talking, but one of them will act and the other one will not. Turkey tends to play politics. Erdogan is known for this, is no different. But Modi, the Prime Minister of India,
Yeah.
outbid him on this as far as flip flopping.
Yeah.
All joking aside, Turkey said, "Yeah, we will defend Palestinians and all," but it's nothing but hypes.
Mhm.
It's in action that you find out. As a matter of fact, the Emir of Qatar now he's put in the red line, and the red line is you either stop or we will arm Hamas.
Mhm.
No, Iran doesn't say it that way. Iran told Israel, if you go into Gaza, we will come in.
Mhm.
Straightforward. And this is to me part of why Israel didn't want to go in, because you know Iran wasn't bluffing. Iran can allocate about 1 million plus to that. What is Israel going to do?
Mhm.
But also Iran understand, because Iran is a pragmatic system, believe it or not, despite what you hear. They also think about the big picture. And the big
Mhm.
picture is you're going to expand the conflict. Remember what Mr. Wani said. It will devour the Middle East.
Yeah.
You're looking at. This is where the difference between now the cancellation of the trip, could it be just logistics? I do not know yet. I intend to take a look at it. But so far, just if I am to put my geopolitical analyst hat on,
Mhm.
I can just aim at this angle as to where the support for the Palestinian lies.
Okay. Next question. Also, guys, I see some of your questions that have some words in it that I cannot read on YouTube and still, keep the channel monetized. So when you are asking the questions, please be very mindful of what we can and can't say on YouTube. Okay. So there is a question. I saw you, Tokyo Homes. There you are. Okay. Question: do you think third world war,
World War III.
yeah, World War III starts in 2024 next year? I mean, no one knows the future but guessing. I don't think so.
No, it won't. It won't, because it will be devastating. It'll be devastating, and nobody wants to be the initiator of that.
Mhm.
No. Now, of course, if strategic interests are threatened, countries tends to step in. They'll issue warnings. They'll deploy military like what we do. But to getting into it will be bad, because I can just see hypothetically, if there was to be a war, you got 4 major countries together: Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. Well, just combine the military capabilities of those countries.
Yeah.
Do you think we can fight them all at once? I don't
No.
think so. What you end up using, the nukes. The nukes, do you think the other country is not going to respond?
Yeah.
And we all know. That's why I don't see that one. Yes, you read or you hear about it, but reality suggests otherwise.
Well, and so this is my answer from sort of the human behavior perspective about that. When you're even looking at this conflict or Russia-Ukraine conflict, the court of public opinion matters a lot, because we're looking right now, we're in an election cycle, for example, and people actually, you guys, we have more power than I think we do. And so it's not in anyone's best interest to start World War III, because Larry Fink actually said this. He said that markets really like more or less dictatorships, right? Because it's a very stable situation for markets, for investment markets. So the people that are in power want things a particular way, and destroying everything doesn't serve their interests. So do I think that more misery will happen in 2024? Yeah, probably. The US is in a very precarious state, especially financially right now. But I don't think that the people in charge want that. And I think that their love of, I don't want to say money, but their love of power supersedes whatever issue they have in terms of, conflict with each other. That's my take on it.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you find this very informative, and we look forward to seeing you again. As always, prepare yourself for changing world order. Till next time. Bye-bye.